Paul Murray Live. Just go searching for that there. Let's keep talking about politics and take your calls on all sorts of issues. Anything you want to fire up about, 1300 30 34 35. James McGrath is an LNP senator from Queensland. Hollie Hughes, a Liberal senator from New South Wales. She's in the man cave and he looks like he is making the most of Queensland right now. Whereabouts are you, James?
I'm in Brisbane in my hotel room, so it's pretty glamorous life, isn't it?
I was going to say, your mobile. Please don't say your mobile office is your hotel room. I can see how this goes weird quickly, but in the meantime, good branding because you went, I'm not having beige curtains.
No.
Now, obviously, for both of you, you're going to interpret our last segment in a certain way. Understand, but I've seen it for years, right? Which is exactly what I laid out before. If your side isn't sufficiently conservative enough, we can see One Nation, we can see Palmer, preference discipline, see what happens, right? 2016, everyone. They don't like what's being suggested by the alternative, preference discipline good, we get 2019. How do you not sell the message, but listen to people like the workers that bloke was just talking about, who's trying to get information for the opposite side of politics? But where do you see the opportunities in what he just said?
I look after the Hunter region of New South Wales, so there is nowhere more pertinent at the moment. And I've been spending a huge amount of time both in the federal seats of Newcastle, Shortland, Patterson, and of course Hunter. And the reality is, some people like Joel Fitzgibbon are very good when it comes to coal. The problem is he is drowned out in his own party room because he does have a leader, and let's hope he doesn't go by Chloe Shorten's husband, going back to your... I think Chloe might have something to say about that.
Correct.
But, you know, these workers up in these regions are feeling abandoned by Labor because it's more about attracting the Green vote in Marrickville than it has anything to do with looking at their job security and the security of the coal region. Now, I think it's incredibly interesting that Madeleine King's come out today, and particularly opportune considering the Upper Hunter state by-elections on. Let's see how the tune is as we get closer to the election. But the Labor Party has moved away from its traditional base, and when you look at those workers, they're leaving the field for them.
So, James, I mean, you saw what I just talked about in Queensland specifically. You saw the Labor vote in Queensland get to the spot where just one senator was able to get elected out of all the options that were around last time. But Labor seems to be trying to move the playing field. Now, you're going to say you don't believe them. That's cool. But if they are going to say at the state level, we approve Adani, and if they're going to say at the federal level, we're not going to stop any new coal mines, what are the concrete tests between now and the election that will show whether Labor is serious about this or not?
It's Labor not talking with a forked tongue. And this is the test for Albanese, which you touched upon before. It's all well and good that they come out and say these things, but the test will be votes in Parliament. The test will be who they pre-select as candidates. The test will be how some of their existing politicians behave in relation to these issues. Because the workers in Queensland, they don't really care whether you're left or right or in the middle or whatever. They just want you to be on their side. And the government has shown that it's on their side through standing up for them before the last election, by standing up for jobs in Central and North Queensland. But it's not just about the jobs in the resource sector, it's about jobs across Queensland. It's about making sure that we have hospitals that work, that we're building roads, that we're building dams, that we're making sure we're investing. I hate the word investing because it sounds like language that an investment banker would use, that we're spending. I wanted to say that, but I thought my mum might be watching.
I can say it. This is
send me a cranky email.
Even though I promised the boss I'll lose less swearing, sometimes just I get it right, the difference between the host and the Polly being able to talk. Let's take some calls. We'll continue on this in this vein in a few times here. Let's get to Mick, who's in Western Australia right now. Mick, you want to talk about, matters to do with soldiers. How do you feel about that Royal Commission being announced by the PM today?
Western Victoria. Western
Nick,
Victoria.
You're on the telly.
Sorry, Paul. Nick from Western Victoria. Bannockburn, mate. How you going? I'm in Lakes Entrance tonight at a motel. There's no beige curtains here. It's all grey curtains. So.
Well, now, please tell me, is it one of those ones that if you order breakfast in the morning, they'll be able to put it in a little envelope and slide it under the door? Those are my favourite hotels of Australia. I love motor inns.
Love you so, Paul. I'm a regular watcher and becoming a regular caller. But anyway, regarding we're good at recruiting young soldiers to go to war, to go to Afghanistan or Iraq and overseas. Some of them lose their lives over there. We bring them back. A lot more of them are taking their own lives. We seem to be more concentrated on filling the MCG or the tennis centre, but we're not looking after our own. We expect our defence forces to look after us in floods and droughts and cyclones. We need to do a lot more looking after them with...
No, I'm with you completely. Is that after they've served, honouring their service, how do we honour their service? Now, there's a few different things about this, right? Where suicide is the worst possible outcome of how a life falls apart after service. But the unemployment rate of people out of the service is way higher than in the rest of the community. There are lots of little leaders before we get to eventually those feelings. But there's an interesting thing that we talked about a few minutes ago, which was tradition, Hollie, which was the industrial left, the intellectual left, the media left, is now trying to say that a support of tradition is a gateway drug to right-wing extremism, that it's interchangeable with right-wing extremism. Now, obviously you and I and James know that's garbage, but this is the thing about the left when they are trying to work out where are the little moments of resistance, right? And a country that understands sacrifice through military as opposed to demonises military operations, well, there's limits to how far you can push that country. What role do you think, not just this Veterans Royal Commission, but about the solutions that come out of it, mean we continue to honour tradition and not as a gateway drug to right-wing extremism?
No, and honouring the service of our veterans is incredibly important. I mean, you look at, we've got the issue today, or coming up this week with Anzac Day, 75,000 at the MCG, 5,000 at an Anzac service. I mean, it's just garbage. It's insulting. But people who serve in the Australian services are incredibly proud of their service, and as they should be. And we need to honour that when they come back. And there's many ways that we can do it. You're right, when we talk about employment, we need to be open and honest about what are the career pathways available to those when they return. There's organisations that have started, like With You, With Me, that's helping people transition from the Army and armed services through to tech and cyber kind of roles through different recruitment methods. So sometimes we just need to be able to think a little bit outside the box and look at how we can work with former soldiers and those from the Air Force and the Navy a lot more effectively. But, we just saw a lot of people object to the proposed expansion of the War Memorial. Yeah. And I was just at a dinner tonight where I bumped into Dr. Brendan Nelson, who did such incredible work there. He's a fantastic man and was such an advocate for that expansion. And one of the, some of the objections we were getting, I really felt listening to them that these were people who were fundamentally saying almost, well, that our recognition should end at World War II. These same people, now that we're pulling out of Afghanistan, are saying, well, where are we going to have the space to honour them? Now, thankfully, the more sensible ones of us were there doing the work to ensure that expansion is going to be able to take place, so that the War Memorial, which is a very sacred place for all former servicemen and women, is going to be able to recognise not only those historic wars, but the ones that we have veterans that are still alive being able to see themselves honoured and respected in their service.
Such a good point. I mean, also, it is a building of national significance where there are half a dozen. The Parliament, the High Court, of national significance, which is why, yes, it's a big chunk of change, but equally, these people automatically say, well, can't that X million dollars be spent on my favourite project? Well, ideally, yes. But, unless we're going to, you have to make priorities, and things of national significance like that are important. But, James, I've got to go to a break, so I've got to be quick here. But again, do you want to sort of bop this thing on the head that support for tradition is the gateway to something a little more nefarious? Because I've now seen this in two places, all right? Now, yes, they're extreme places, but we used to roll our eyes and laugh about the stuff that they were punching out in Bachelor of Arts 15 years ago. Now it ends up being mandated policy that you must sign in blood, okay? Which is... I've seen it in university publications, Swinburne University, and I've seen it popularised in opinion segments in the Turnbull Times, otherwise known as The Guardian. That tradition and support for it is a problem.
It's so wrong. that the pathway to extremism is because people do not respect tradition. Without tradition, we are nothing as a society, and nothing as a country, and nothing as a people. Tradition is what makes this country, and the best thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks is Peter Dutton being up at Laverack Barracks with Phil Thompson saying to the ADF, "We've got your back." And that is the most important thing that any politician has said in the last 2 weeks, because that is about tradition in the past and tradition to come in the future.
All right, we've got a couple of good pollies here. If you would like to get their views on any sort of issue, or you want to push them a little bit, that's fine too. 1300 30 34 35 is our telephone number. We're also going to have a chat to a family, thankfully reunited, separated for more than a year, but thankfully now that travel bubbles are gone and you can come and go between Australia and New Zealand, a way to celebrate that family. Next.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Our nation's heroes will be honoured, those who served, who fought, and who died. Sky News Australia will broadcast the major services with live Anzac Day coverage from dawn.